There is one family request that I won't honor, and that is when a family asks me not to use the word hospice or to talk to a patient about them dying. Now, look, this is going to be very common if you are in hospice. You're going to run into this a lot. You will get families who will say to you, you can't use the word hospice, use the word comfort care, or just say that you're home health or that you're just coming to check on them. And here's how I answer that question. First of all, I want to be sensitive to the family. I am a chaplain, so I am very sensitive to why a family would not want that done. Typically, it's a couple of reasons. The most important reason is typically the family is just not at a place of acceptance that their loved one is dying. I totally get that. It's really hard. The bigger you love, the harder it is sometimes to come to terms that your loved one is dying. Second of all, sometimes they say, well, it'll upset the patient to know that they're put on hospice. Or they'll give you some version of if the patient knew that they were dying, they would give up. So if you tell them they're on hospice, that's going to be a sign that life is no longer worth living. They'll stop fighting to live and they'll die, which is a conversation for another day. But it's usually one of those as a reason why they don't want you to discuss it with the patient. Now, here's the deal and why I don't honor it. And then I'll tell you how I talk to families about it, because I don't be like, I'm going to say that word. I'm going to do that. No, I'm not trying to make them upset. But here's what I think is interesting. The person already knows that they're dying. That patient is very much so aware that they're dying. And the research shows, and this is really important, as professional chaplains, you want to have as much research about death and dying and chaplaincy as possible. Journal articles are your friends because you want to know what you know while you know. Now, you're not going to tell a patient's family what the research says, but it's something about having that knowledge embedded in you that makes it easier to have these conversations, at least for me. So the research shows that the person knows that they're dying. And what's unfortunate is while the family may be thinking that they're protecting their dying loved one by not talking to them, they're actually often increasing loneliness and anxiety and fear and maybe anger in the patient. Because again, the patient knows they're dying and they have no one to talk to it about. Because oftentimes the patient knows that their family is avoiding using the word or talking about it. So out of love for their family, they won't press the issue. But it's additional grief on them not to be able to talk about it. And so every person deserves the truth. When we look at ethics, just ethics in medicine, one of the top ethics is autonomy. I feel like by not telling the person, the patient, the truth, I'm kind of stripping them of some autonomy. What do y'all think? Put that in the comments. So you're taking away some of their power. And when you're at the end of life, things already feel out of control because you're dying and you have no control over that. When you're very sick, you often feel like you have no control. So one of the things that I try to do as a part of my care practice, my practice of care, is to restore dignity and autonomy and choice and respect. And for me, that comes from telling a person the truth. They already know they're dying. So how do I tell families that? First of all, I always take the posture of curiosity. So when I have a family who says, hey, I don't want you to talk to my loved one about dying, or I don't want the care team to use the word hospice. So I typically take on a posture of curiosity. And I will say, the person will say, I don't want you guys to use the word hospice with my loved one. or I don't want you to talk to my loved one about dying. My response is typically, I hear you. And it sounds like that's really important to you. I'm curious, what about the word hospice might be upsetting to you? Notice I don't say to the person about the patient, because the patient ain't the one who's saying don't use it. It's a loved one. What about the word hospice is upsetting to you? Or what are you concerned about if I do talk about death with your loved one? What does that bring up for you? So immediately I'm trying to elicit the reason behind the request so that we can address that, right? Because if they're not at a place of acceptance, remember, as a chaplain, part of your role is not just to offer spiritual and emotional support to the patient, but also their family system. And so it's a great opportunity for you to start to build trust and offer care to that family member. But let's just say they're hard, fast, no, I don't want it. I'm not ready for it. Don't do it. They're clear about they don't want you to do it. I'm not out here trying to make enemies, y'all, and I wouldn't encourage you to do that. But I am integrous about my work. So what I will say to that person when they're just dog it, like, no, don't, I'll say, here's what I can promise you. And I said just like this. Here's what I can promise you. I can feel the love behind your request. So I affirm that they're doing this from a place of love. I can hear the love behind your request. And I also must respect the autonomy of the patient, of their loved ones, I would say, of your mother, of your father, of your grandmother. So here's what I can promise. I won't lead conversations with the word hospice or even lead a conversation about death. However, if your mother asks me if she's on hospice, I'm obligated to tell her the truth. If your loved one asks me if she's dying, I'm obligated to tell her the truth. And here's why. She is the patient, and she has a right to know what's going on with her. It's about respect and dignity. And don't you want your patient, that patient, your mother, your father, to be treated with respect and dignity? And typically, that softens the person's heart, because absolutely, hospice is all about dying with dignity, right? Hospice care is all about restoring autonomy and choice. You're choosing how you want to live your last days. And so for me, it does a few things. Number one, it helps me to understand where the family is in terms of acceptance and how I might be able to support them. Number two, it reminds them that that person in the bed still has rights. They still are able to speak about what they want and what they don't want. And then third, it reinforces my integrity and my role on the care team. I'm curious what other people think about that. Do you feel like that's a violation and that you should always honor the family's request? Or do you get where I'm coming from? Drop it in the comments. If you're new around here, my name is Leslie. I am creating the videos that I wish existed years ago when I first started considering becoming a chaplain. Like, share, comment, all the things. You may notice that I seem a little stuffy today because I'm kind of under the weather. So pray for your girl. And until next time, grace and peace.